And throughout the course of our lives, we've all had scary, painful, overwhelming experiences of being hurt or betrayed or abandoned or rejected or not seen or shamed, whatever it is. Experiences that we've not been able to fully integrate. Emotions, images, impulses that have engulfed our capacity to process and to make sense of what's happened to us, to integrate these experiences into a unified, cohesive narrative, which is essential when it comes to the felt experience of integration and wholeness. And remember that the ubiquitous nature of trauma also includes our witnessing of the wounding of others, human and animal, and also the harm of nature, the harm of earth, who is also a living being. And situations when we witness this live in real time as it's happening, and also when we read or we hear about it through another's experience or through images that we see online. I mean, everything is on video these days. The news, social media feeds, Twitter, it's filled with images and stories of trauma. And so what we call vicarious or secondary trauma is a very real thing. And I don't think the reality of this is really fully understood or honored in our world. How our own center of gravity can be shifted out of safety, out of connection, out of trust, out of ground, and into those states of sympathetic fight, flight, or dorsal collapse, shutdown, dissociation, through bearing witness to the pain, the anxiety, the fear, the trauma of another person or another group of persons or other living beings. And remember, with traumatic organization, our nervous systems chronically or habitually come to detect cues of danger and life threat. And even in subtle ways, we can be on edge, shaky, restless, worried, panicky, and scared and preparing to respond. And when this becomes habitual and not an accurate response to an actual danger, when it becomes more chronic and conditioned, you might imagine how this could interfere with our capacity to feel safe and connected, to feel trusting, at peace, joyful, and be able to come into that rest that's required in order to participate in the wonder and the awe and the joy of just being. It's going to be nearly impossible to do this, at least with any consistency for most of us. If there is a detection deep within us that things aren't safe, that we aren't safe, that the world isn't safe, which we have no choice but to respond to by bringing online those defensive circuits where we're having to protect ourselves from life. I mean, we can't truly rest. We can't truly relax into the body, which is essential for the felt experience of integration, of wholeness, of unity, of union. The vehicle or the vessel, it has to be prepared first. We can't rest in states of pure joy, awe, connection, intimacy if there's instability in the vessel, the body vessel, the vessel of this human nervous system. If it's clogged or gunked up or leaky, or if it's depleted, which is often the reality of the state of our subtle energy, our subtle body in the world at this time. I mean, the reality is that many of us are walking around with a nervous system that has been tuned or toned in a certain way to detect that danger and life threat. It's become our habituated baseline state, but we're often not even aware of it. It can be subtle. And we might not notice it until we really start to do this. We really start to slow down, to reattune to the feeling body, the breathing body, and spend some time in silence with ourselves or out in nature, which in our modern busy world with all of our electronic gadgets and the ways we're plugged in and with the frenetic spin of the collective is just not easy to do. Or we'll start to notice it when the symptomatology, when the cry out from the body, from the soul has gotten so loud that we're just unable to ignore it any longer. And often by that time, we're really suffering, we're really struggling. We've fallen down the rabbit hole. Things are really charged or activated or hot or sticky or claustrophobic. And it's not easy to climb out of that. Do you know what I mean? And so when it comes to the lost orphans, to the scattered pieces of the soul, to that undigested, disembodied, dissociated, unlived experience, it requires a certain quality of awareness, of attunement to reach them, which is almost always going to involve the body, in my experience. Because their home isn't in the neocortical regions and areas of the brain, in the rational and thinking pathways. We can't find them through thinking. We can't heal traumatic organization by thinking. They've taken up residence elsewhere. They live and breathe and move in these underground areas, in the shadowlands and bodily and subcortical landscapes. And they will continue to call out to us from within their world, which is one of psyche and soma, image, impulse, dream, and pure feeling. And so whether the various types of betrayal and wounding and hurt that any of us may have experienced, whether these rise to the level of what we would call trauma, that word, of course, is used in so many different ways these days, but these experiences have a way of coloring our perception and affecting our capacity to feel safe, to feel at home, to feel that we belong here, to be able to inhabit and experience this body and this place as a true home for us. That we're really wanted here in this world, that we're allowed to be here fully as we are. And it's vital that there is enough of a foundation, a scaffolding of safety, what in attachment theory is called a secure base, to go out and take a risk in the world with our creative work, our relationships, and with moving into those more unstructured states of consciousness. Wonder, awe, deep rest, intimacy, unity, union, which includes states of meditation and contemplation, all of which can involve a certain sort of risk psychologically as well as neurophysiologically, and this can be subtle. I mean, if there's not that basic foundation of safety, of trust, of connection at a deep neural felt level, it's going to be very difficult to open up into that sort of exploration, into the deeper reaches of the alchemical vision, of that mysterious connection between matter and spirit. Because our defensive responses have been turned off they have to be turned off in order to do that. If we're habitually and chronically detecting cues of danger and threat from a nervous system that has been tuned or toned in that direction, there's not going to be the requisite energy, in order to move more deeply into the unknown, into the mystery.